Welcome first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. What about fucking Colin? Why does he not have a fucking job? Because he's still being whiteballed. Why is Tom not speaking out about that? He should be his biggest fucking ally. And he hasn't said one fucking thing. A lot of people that have come on this show, I don't know why, they've gotten some good fucking jobs afterwards. Jim Rome in the jungle. It's right here in the Sports Deli, baby. We got some good ass karma right here. Let's fucking go.
I love it.
Man.
I love it.
Coach Herrick's camp, which was very, very, very important to him.
How about that?
We hope you enjoy today's show, everyone. All right, let's rock and roll. So today's podcast is brought to you by my Amazon shop. Check it out at amazon.com/shop/the Sports Deli. And you can see all the products that I've done videos on, my idea list, and my shoppable photos. I may make a commission on any of the things that you watch or see, but it's at no extra cost to you. Enjoy today's show. Do we have to refer to him as Mr. Duncan? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, please, I'm very formal, Secretary Duncan.
There you go. Exactly.
Just put a sir on the end of it. Mr. Duncan, sir.
All right, here we go. Let's rock and roll. We're so honored to welcome on this 60th anniversary of the March on Washington and the 68th anniversary of the abduction and murder of Emmett Till, two watershed moments in the civil rights movement and American history and herstory, a Clubhouse influencer, host of the C-Roc Experience, C-Roc. C-Roc has been a part of the mortgage space, has a coaching business, hosts a podcast, runs an agency where he wants to see others win, a clothing line, and is an author. And today you will hear the rest of this unbelievably incredible story of resiliency, perseverance, transformation, and love from this thought leader, visionary, and dynamic public speaker. He has been featured by Yahoo Finance as one of the top business leaders to follow and is on a mission to build people. He was born the same day as Fab Five member Juwan Howard, Steve Nash, and Super Bowl champ Matthew Stafford, along with the prankster Ashton Kutcher and Chris Rock. You can find him on LinkedIn, in Clubhouse, obviously, on Instagram at Mikey C-Roc, where he doesn't have 15,000 followers or 150,000 followers, but 1.5 million followers. And you can find more about him on his website at MikeyCroc.com or at that1agency.com. And I love the logo, for the record. If you go to the website, you'll see that between the T and the H of that, there's a number 1. So I don't know how they came up with that, but that is one of the most killer logos that I've ever seen. But welcome to the Sports Daily podcast, where everyone deserves a seat at the table, especially C-Roc.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me. I start every interview with gratitude, man. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're from the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, well, I grew up outside of Philly until high school, and then I moved down. I kept moving down further and further and further until now I found Ocean City, Maryland. Great place to raise a family. And business is tough in business, but a lot of stuff's virtual nowadays, and I travel quite a bit. So,
yeah, it's funny because I went to grad school at Frostburg State, which is on the other side of Maryland.
Bobcats.
Yeah, but yeah, it's very flat in Salisbury.
Yeah, very flat, but we have the beach in Ocean City, which is nice. So,
yeah,
I played football at Salisbury, by the way, and I played Frostburg in college. Yeah.
Yes, you did, and it was probably right around the time when because I was, at Frostburg from 92 to 94. So I thought that was really interesting when I was, doing some research on you. And so shout out to D3. There's been a lot of D3 people that have had a lot of success moving up the ladder. And so I want to talk to you about coaching because, you've gone about it in a different way. But it's interesting to me because, both you and I'm a micro influencer. You're more of a major influencer. And I like to know about how people got their start, the support system that they had, or if it was, a difficult upbringing. I've had 6 dads. 2 of my dads have unalived themselves. You see, I've been on social media too much. 2 of my dads committed suicide. And so, to navigate those kind of spaces. And so I'm just interested what it was like for you as a kid, besides the sports piece, that allowed you to now get into the spaces that you're in now to amplify so many different people.
Yeah, well, condolences. And I know that's a tough thing. Suicide is something that I can't explain the feeling of, you know, my grandmother committed suicide. My stepfather's father committed suicide. My sister's boyfriend committed suicide. Then his father committed suicide. My uncle overdosed on, like I've been around it, but the feeling's different than when somebody just passes. Even a sudden passing is not the same as a suicide, because you can't, I don't know this. There's a, like, I want to describe this. Hoot. Can I call you Hoot? Is that the best way? Like,
absolutely.
yeah. So Hoot. So like, I can't describe it except for like, I get this weird burning feeling in my chest when I found out someone ended their life that way. It's a different thing, man. And I just, yeah, it's tough. So I'm very, very familiar with that. And for me growing up, I grew up around a lot of brokenness, a lot of drug addicts, alcohol, mental illness, conflict, divorce, custody battles, child support, fighting, you name it. And I didn't want that in my life. But as a kid, I couldn't control my environment as much. As you grow up, you can control your environment. I couldn't control my environment. So I had to figure out how to survive it, right? How to figure out like coping mechanisms. And I just felt that joking around and smiling and laughing was the best way to do it. So, and I was always trying to get on the good side of the people that had these mood problems, I'll call them, you know, and I always wanted to like try to cheer them up, or I figured out communication was a powerful thing as a kid, but I didn't get rid of all the brokenness. But as I grew older, I had to realize that I was in control of my environment as I got older. And I had to realize that in order to have a great life, you need to figure out how to control your environment. And so, you know, luckily I had a great stepfather that stepped in for my dad, who, the stories in my book, Rocket Fuel, about how he pretty much gave up on me. But George, my stepfather, George, stepped in when I was about 11. And thank God I had him in my life.
Yeah, and again, to my earlier point about the website, you can see on his hat, for those of you watching on YouTube, the one there between the T and the H. And you know, you mentioned laughter, and I've said this a lot. My first experience with suicide was when my stepdad, who I considered my dad, I took on his name, went to court and took on his name, not my paternal father's name. It was like the most empty. I can't even describe the feeling. Like you mentioned earlier, it was deeper than sad, much deeper. You mentioned laughter and sports. We have sort of that in common. So I say this all the time, that those two things literally saved me, and you know, a strong support system in other ways. But I had male figures and coaches. And so, you know, did you have strong coaches, you know, male figures besides your stepdad that, you know, filled in that space? Because the other thing I want you to speak on is, some people don't have the resiliency that we have. You and I seem to have that inner resiliency, that nature versus nurture component. And what do you say to the people that don't have that inner resiliency and they succumb to the pressures of drug use or alcohol, and instead of saying, please get that out of my face, I'm not doing it, even though I've been through a lot of trauma and a lot of hardships. And we have the ability to say no and stay focused in sports or laugh, whereas other people, they don't have that inner resiliency and that strength to be able to fight off those temptations.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, yeah, I played football since I was younger, baseball, a lot of great coaches, a lot of good people that were in there. You know, when I was in high school, there was a baseball coach named Randy Schaefer. He was a great mentor, great coach. And then football, we had a couple guys that were on the football team, on the staff there. They were just good dudes too. And we had a lot of fun with them. And yeah, so I did have that in my life, thank God. And, you know, I needed that. And I didn't drink alcohol until I got to college. So I was like that. Get out of my face. Get it out of my face. I'm going somewhere. When I stopped having that attitude was when I got to college, and I saw girls that I'd never seen before. I saw parties that I had never seen before. And because I came from a small town, and when I started seeing that at Salisbury, I was like, what is this place? And then my intention shifted from being an athlete to being a partier and a socialite. And when so what I'll say to those people that have that issue where they go to the coping mechanism, alcohol, drugs, all that, it all has to do with your intention. It's all your intention, because when my intention was on point, I didn't have any problem saying no to it. But when my intention was not on point, then I I caved to other people's intention. So we have intention or ability to create our own universe through intention. We can create everything around us the way we want it. And if we don't take that seriously and take action on that and be self-determined with that, we end up having a universe, all of our environment, everything shaped by those around us. And when that happens, whether it's our parents, our friends, society, the media, when that happens, we are never happy. You are never, ever, ever, ever happy when your environment, your universe is shaped by other people. But most people don't understand that. And if you're listening to this and you're unhappy, you're anxious, you have depression, I want all of you to consider something. Are you taking responsibility for setting the intention for what you want in your life and then paying attention to those things and taking actions on those things? Or are you just kind of drifting and being pushed by everybody else's self-determinism?
And David Meltzer came on the show and talked about how he learned probably the most from his failures. We've had Dr. Russ Kennedy, the anxiety MD, who was a doctor for 30 years, and only when he quit being a doctor and went to India on a spiritual journey and started teaching yoga. This is a neuroscientist, because his dad had schizophrenia and was bipolar, and he had anxiety his entire life for 30 years and wanted to kill himself. Only when he made a decision and had the strength and courage to pivot did he find peace, inner peace. And so with that being said, I want to ask you, what was the single greatest impact at Salisbury? Was it what you learned in the locker room? Because the locker room is the great equalizer. You have people of color, you have Italians, you have, Italians are white, but you have a lot of different walks of life, and it's all shelved for a common purpose. Was it an advisor? So you had the partying, which a lot of us do, to escape and have fun. But what was the single greatest impact that propelled you, at least for that next first step after college?
There's so many. I think the first thing, you talk about diversity. I came from a town in Maryland where it was majority white people. Prior to that, high school, I was hanging out with a lot of Latinos and less white people. So then I came into this high school and it was mostly white, and there were some black people, and I didn't know who to hang out with at first. So I would hang out with the black people, and then some reason I got my ass kicked a couple times, and I'm like, wait a minute, I was so confused. I got to college though, and it was much more diverse, especially on a football team.
Right.
And I'm in the locker room now with guys that came from DC, Baltimore, just different worlds. And I learned a lot, man. I learned a lot. It's not that I didn't, I didn't like people or certain people at all. It wasn't that. It's just, I didn't know. I was ignorant to a lot of things, a lot of things that people go through, a lot of things people have experienced, and the thoughts that they have on those things. And I was educated on that. I was brought up to speed pretty quickly, made a lot of great friends. And I think that for the world and going forward into the after college life, it brought me to a situation where I was searching and yearning to understand people more and where they come from and what their perspective is. And then Clubhouse comes along years later, and Clubhouse is a microcosm of the world. And I think white people are the minority in Clubhouse. I think, based on what I see. Yeah. And it's a different world than you see in where you come from a lot of times. So I'm in Clubhouse learning from people. I go in there, I teach, and I contribute, but I'm really, the first actually 2 years, I just listened and learned. And I really got a different perspective on where people are coming from. And it was amazing. It's so, I have friends from all sides of Clubhouse. And this weekend was one of the things that we did a little social experiment. And we try to bring all sides of Clubhouse in, meaning there's sides of people that, they call the mainstream. They have the dark side. They have the Latino side. It's like, it reminds me of like a jailhouse or a jail, prison, where they have all these different, I'm trying to understand it all. Yeah. But I just said this idea with Hollywood Larry, this guy, Hollywood Larry, hey, let's bring everybody in together and see what happens. Let's have a good time and laugh a lot. And it was amazing, man. It was amazing. And I think it provided an opportunity. I know I'm going on about this because you started with a college question, but it provided an opportunity, just like in college, where all parties, everybody, no matter where you came from, can have a good time with each other, but also learn from each other. Because I heard this week in another room after that I had one of those rooms, a lady who happens to be Black said, I wasn't comfortable in that room because I didn't know what to say and I didn't want to say the wrong thing. And so for me to know that somebody feels that way coming in my space helps me the next time that we have guests in our house to kind of address that, to welcome people and say, hey, listen, this is a place where we're learning a lot. We don't get upset with each other if we don't know something. And please speak your mind and share so we can learn from each other.
Well, there's one thing, even though we've both been in locker rooms, I played 4 years of college basketball. I'm a professional basketball skills trainer now. And, you've been in the coaching space, in a different way off the court and off the field. But one thing that we can't possibly understand, I don't care how much we bridge the gap, how big of vessels we are, how big of bridges we are in the white space as allies, what it's like to be a person of color. But like you said, we can't go in these spaces and listen. We can learn. And the next time we can mobilize in a way where it speaks to our authenticity and allows somebody maybe to be more comfortable next time because they had the courage to share what they shared. And so I think that's really important, is to acknowledge that we can't possibly understand what it's like to have generational trauma, what it's like to still be living in a space where you get in your car and if you go by a cop, your heart rate goes up. Still, it's a real thing. You walk into a store and you're looked at differently. Now, I'm not talking about Louis Vuitton. I'm talking about Walmart. And so we can't possibly understand it, but we can listen and not be arrogant to think that we have answers in those spaces. So shout out to you for those 2 years of, and I was the same way. And I would venture to say that in most spaces, nobody knows who I am. I even got thrown out of Amber's room the other day because somebody took my profile picture and they thought I was some guy who supposedly was the creator of MySpace's lawyer. So yeah, and I tried to back channel them, and so there is a lot of different sides to Clubhouse, but it has single-handedly changed my life profoundly. There are people that I'm sure you would agree that you want to meet in person if you haven't met them already, that I could care less about seeing people from my childhood versus these people on Clubhouse, who are some of the most beautiful, brilliant, incredible humans that I've ever seen, who give back in a way that I've never been a part of. I've never seen it in college. I've never seen it after college. And obviously the pandemic catapulted the app at the right time. But the way that people pour into other people, despite the ratchetness sometimes and people getting scammed. But if you find your community and you then build it and be a part of other communities, it's really remarkable, not only for me personally for this podcast, but now I'm in a space where I'm monetizing 4 streams of income. And if you told me that as a college basketball coach, I'd have told you you had lost your goddamn mind 4 years ago. And so it's really, again, speaks to the resiliency and sitting in the audience and listening. And there's a reason you have 2 ears versus 1 mouth. And so I'm just trying to be like you, a better version of myself every day. Now, we did jump ahead. I don't know if you want to speak on that before we sort of go back in time a little bit, because I don't want there to be a disconnect, because we just jumped from your early 20s to where you are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, because there's such
But
a relation in there.
yeah,
I never
it
stopped
was.
learning.
Yeah. So, but what was the biggest mistake that you learned that happened next after college? Not necessarily your biggest success early on, that allowed you to reinvent yourself, because you wouldn't be where you are if you didn't have some of those mistakes early on.
Well,
And I know, let me say this real quick. I know your brother gave you a book, but I think that came later. Did you read back then? What was it back then that you learned from the one biggest mistake that made you pivot back then?
Well, I didn't read as much as I do now, but one thing I wish I would have did or done, is
Yeah.
save more of my income and keep my expenses lower. And because once you get to a certain point, you get married, kids, and then it's very difficult to put as much money away as you want to. And so I wish I would have did a better job at that and eased into the lifestyle. I never was really extravagant, but I have a habit of investing in myself and like in good ways and investing in my businesses.
Yeah.
So I always forget about that, but I just wish I would have been able to take more money and put into real estate earlier. And I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
do that. And I didn't know better. I knew real estate. I understood it. You know, you could have houses and this, and that, but I just didn't understand it enough to do it and commit to it. So that to me is a mistake. I had houses. I bought my first house at 21 and I went through houses and I made money on all my houses that I've ever had, but I never like, they were always primary residences and I made money on them and sold them, lived in them for a little bit, sold it, made money. And I just never understood to pile it up, you know, and now I do. And now it's like when you're 46, it's different because you got, you know, I got kids, one's getting ready to go to college next year, you know, another one, it's just different, you know. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Same. I was doing a Roth and then I lost my job because of philosophical differences, and I had to tap into it, and I really haven't done anything since. But now with Amazon and TikTok and some different things, brand deals, you know, to your point, about a decade older, yeah. So to everybody out there who's younger, put away $50 a week, put away $20 a week, like just don't touch it. And
No, let's go
yeah,
farther. Let's go further with
yeah,
this. Let's go further with this. And I know it's harder now because of inflation. Okay. But
yeah.
still, let's see how we could possibly put away 30 to 40% of our income.
But isn't that hard for people to wrap their head around? They're like, I need this. And then culturally, we could get into a whole discussion culturally about how
Yeah.
people need
Yeah.
things or
But
think
that
they
doesn't
need
mean,
things.
you
Right.
can't try, like focus
Yeah.
on that's your target.
So you think that's a better goal than saying, okay, start with $10 a week?
Yeah. Because people won't do $10 if they focus on $10, they'll do less, if at all.
Got it.
So this is human behavior, right? So if you say, you know, I'm going to do 30 to 40, and then they're going to end up, you know, 10 to 20. This is the way it is, you know,
Right.
and you might start off, okay, let me start off doing 30 to 40. And then you realize, oh, I can't live off that. And then but for a few months, you put away 30 or 40, right? So you're ahead of the game already. I just wish that I would have did that and lived off of just been skimpy because, you know, here's the thing. It doesn't really take much for us to survive.
Right.
Like we don't need all the stuff that we spend money on. We really don't. I don't care where you come from. All of us, you know, my son, he's just starting to work for me. He spends money on stuff like chips and things, you know, God, you don't need that. Like you just don't need it. You don't need it to survive, but we feel like we got programmed, like we need this stuff. So I just wish I was better with that stuff. And I think everybody can be, but definitely you got to just aim high. Please just aim high, guys. Please aim high. If you come up short, big deal.
So you bought houses at a young age, your first one at 21. And then so how did you leverage that because you get bored easily. So how did you leverage that to get to the next phase in your life? And what did you learn between those phases? And what mistakes did you make going forward from that perspective?
Well, I use the money. I always use the money for basically I either call it a bridge to get to the next thing because I'm always trying to up level. Sometimes I use the money for bridging the gap, like a runway, having money to get to the next thing or get the next thing up and running, or investing in my business. And so I've always done that. And, you know, so for me, over the time, I've always, you know, achieved something. And then I'm like, okay, what's the next level? What's the next level? How can I get there? And then I take money and I put it into that new thing. And so
Let me ask you this question though. Let me interject because we were in sports and we mentioned that earlier. So we understand what collaboration is and we've seen it. We just talked about it with Clubhouse. But did you feel threatened by people that were in your space back then? And did you go about your business in a different kind of way than you do now?
like what, give me a specific.
Well, like if you're in the mortgage industry and, you know, like with recruiting, for example, in sports, some coaches negatively recruit. And some people just say, hey, go visit a lot of schools and then come to a conclusion. And whatever you decide, I'm okay with it, but I'm not going to talk badly about anybody else. You
Well,
know,
yeah,
so
no. So
yeah,
first, yeah. So I had a negative connotation of the way I just had like this scarcity mindset. I didn't feel like I had the power to recover if somebody left me. And so when I had that thing, or if I didn't want to always be recruiting as an employer, I would be scared if people left. Absolutely. And then I would handle it the wrong way. And so what I've realized and learned is that if you can be the type of person that knows you got this and you're always recruiting, you're always networking, you're always building, and you know you can always replace and start over if you had to, you're never afraid. You're never afraid.
But you
You're like,
can't
hey,
possibly,
you don't go somewhere else, go somewhere else.
but you
This is the way
can't
we're
know
doing
that
things.
in your 20s. You can't know that, right? Like, so you're not beating yourself up over, the fact that that's how you handled things back then, right? Like if you handled it now in your 40s, somebody would probably have to check you and be like, dude, like,
No,
what?
there's a lot of people right now that are like that in their 40s, though. The majority of people.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
asking, because you
Yeah.
made the mistake of how you handled things. Maybe you want to give an example of how you handled it. Did you yell at somebody? Did you,
Oh yeah. Look, when I was in the mortgage space and somebody would leave, it was like I took it so personal. And I would tell them off, or you know, just wouldn't be friends with them anymore, and I wouldn't wish them well, and that's kind of stupid stuff. But now it's like when I do it now, I just say, man, I get it, and I take responsibility for everything too. I don't take it personally, but I take responsibility. Like maybe I could have done things a little differently to make it different, stay here. Or you know what? Sometimes people have to leave for you to up level. And I look at it differently. So I just didn't look at it back then. I always looked at it as a threat. I looked at it, took it personal, scarcity mindset. Like, nah, that's changed now, but most people still have that. Most people are still in that.
No, yeah, I would definitely agree. And you hear it all on Clubhouse, man. You give people tools to put in their toolbox, and 3 years later, they're still processing and they haven't done anything with it. So, and I've learned to try and meet people where they are. If you're going to give someone two things, if you're going to give someone money, don't ask for it back. If you have it, give it, and just be glad that they came to you and that you were able to help. And the second thing is just meet people where they are. Because if you try and project, or you can challenge people, you can try and give them a tool here and there, but yeah, if you don't meet people where they are, it's really difficult in any space, whether you're trying to teach them something or ramming it down their throat, those types of things.
Yeah, no. I think you just, I show up to Clubhouse, show up. The people that get it, they get it. The ones that don't, they don't. And then I like to have a lot of fun. So that's
So for people
that's
that
what
don't
I
know
do.
what the hell Clubhouse is, it's a social audio app. And there's a lot of terminology that is sort of fun for those of us that have been in Clubhouse. And
Yeah, nomenclature. It's got its own nomenclature.
PTR, there's a bunch of things, but yeah, it's been an amazing journey to meet people in there. So then, what was your next mistake in that journey?
Let's see. Where are we now?
Well, you were building houses and people left. And so what happened after people were leaving? You took it personally. And so what did you do next? Because, if you have that feeling of anxiety and you're pissed off, it can really cause blind spots. So did you have a lot of blind spots back then that now looking back on it, you're like, man, I'm glad I brought some people in that were different versions of
Well,
me. Yeah.
here's what happened. So when I first was in the mortgage business, I was chasing production. I was chasing production without a care to alignment, without a care to core values, without a care to a mission, without a care to holding people accountable. We just chase production. That never works because the foundation's not built, and the foundation eventually breaks. And if everything comes to top heavy and it falls over.
Yeah.
So the second time around, when everything crumbled for me in 2018, I said, we're going to start with culture this time. And we're going to establish our mission, our core values. We're going to hold people accountable because we're going to hold ourselves accountable. And we need to understand that we're not going to be able to hold other people accountable until we hold ourselves accountable first. Leadership starts with me. And so I rallied the troops. We lost some people because they didn't vibe with that. They were like, I don't care about core values. I just want to sell this and I want to sell that. And they didn't understand it. And so we started with core values and mission, and that changed everything. And we started caring about our people and what they wanted personally. What do they want to accomplish personally so that they could care about the big mission? And that made all the difference. And we, at that point, before I got out of the mortgage business, which is another story, we were rocking and rolling, and people were loving coming to work. They enjoyed it. We were building people, not just doing mortgages. That was our vehicle, but we were building people. And yeah, so that's the mistake before, was just not not understanding all that, not implementing that.
Now, are your non-negotiables the same in your personal relationship as they are in business?
Yeah.
You want to tell people what the top two are? What are your top two non-negotiables?
Well, actually, my mission is that all people are unstoppable to live in the life of their dreams, and I filter everything through that mission: my thoughts, words, actions, and an environment that I keep. But I also have my core values, which is an acronym, VITALS, and those core values are pretty much what I go by. VITALS: vibes matter and emotions are contagious, is the first one. I understand that my vibes matter, my emotions are contagious, and I need to make sure that people around me are not catching into me with their negative emotions and vibes. I is imagine, no lids, endless potential. I understand that I don't know what my potential is. I don't know what your potential is. So why would we even limit it? So I don't place a lid on anything. T is take 100% responsibility. I don't blame things, blame people. I take responsibility myself. I understand that to the degree I take responsibility, I take control. And another word that's related to responsibility is competence. So that's another important one. I want my competence to be high, so I take high responsibility. A is all setbacks are rocket fuel. I understand everything that comes my way is for good. It may not be good at the time, but it is for good. Let's see. L is leadership starts with me. I already mentioned. So I understand that I have to be a leader in order to lead other people. And S, success is the only option. Those are my non-negotiables. I stick with those. I'm good. And it makes it easier also, Hoot, because I can make decisions very quickly. It's either going towards the mission or away from the mission. It's either aligned with the core values or it's not. Binary decisions, no in-betweens, and eliminates chaos and confusion.
Well, there's two lessons there. Less is more, and well, probably more than two, but be true to your authentic self. And if you don't have a strong foundation, it'll crumble. And you saw that, and that's probably part of why either you pivoted with the mortgage business, or you were forced out, or things crumbled in 2018, that you mentioned. But now, not only are you a better version of yourself, but you're extrapolating in a way where it's impacting people more than the production part of it.
Yeah, 18. I came back and we built it in 2 years. But this year in April, I decided, well, actually, it was 4 years ago, I decided to get out of the business, but I needed to take my time in doing so. And I set it up the right way. And April of this year, I got out because I didn't like living doing something I didn't like to do. I realized that my window, all of us have a window that's shrinking every day. And I didn't want to spend my life doing something I wasn't liking doing, despite the money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So before we go to the rapid fire, which is the fun part of the show, anything about that one agency, your book, anything that we didn't, talk about, that your future goals in the next 5 to 10 years, where you see yourself that you want to, share with people before we have some fun?
Yeah, real quick. So that one agency started April of 2022 because I started realizing after 4 years of going, well, actually, it was only 3 years at that time, of going on to podcasts. I had done over 900 podcasts in 3.5 years. I realized that I had the blueprint to success in this area. Going on as a guest. Okay. I do my own show too, but going on as a guest is very powerful. If you do it the right way, you can create unlimited amount of content. Google search optimization, when somebody Googles your name, is ridiculous. How many times you're interviewed it's just listed there and creates credibility and authority. Content, unlimited content for repurposing, whether it's blogs, writing a book, social media posts, reels, Instagrams, TikToks, YouTube shorts, confidence. I can go on and on and on. And what happens is that you can leverage this attention. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs don't know about this, or they don't know how powerful this is. So now I make sure they know about it. With that one agency, we take entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, authors, we take them and get them on aligned podcasts consistently, which is important, over long periods of time, get them attention and help show them how to monetize and leverage that attention. And so that one agency started niche. The niche is podcast guest booking. However, we're going to expand out from that. This brand is phenomenal. I know that. This is something that came to me one day and I just executed on it. Appreciate you saying the logo looks good. This came to me one day and I realized that one means not being the best. It means being authentic to yourself and leaning into it and being that one. And so we want to encourage people to be that one, no matter where they come from, no matter what race they are, what religion they are, what sex they are, whatever, doesn't matter. be authentically you, be that one. And so that's what we're going to lean to and create a movement from this. That's the vision. And a movement is when a whole bunch of people start to move in a certain direction. And that you can do so many businesses with that. This brand can be put on in many different industries.
Yeah, absolutely. And bet on yourself. That doesn't mean you can't collab. Doesn't mean you can't pour into others and pay it forward and mobilize and be a part of something bigger than yourself. But people will feel, whether or not you have arrogance or swag, and there is nuance there.
Well, Mike,
yeah.
you see people wearing 10X hats from Grant Cardone all the time, 10X hats. You see him wearing the Nike swoosh. You see him wearing all these different things. Well, this is that thing. This logo is that kind of thing where this will be all over the world. People will be proud to wear it. It'll make them feel a certain way to know that they're that one, and then expressing the fact that they're like, if you don't like the way I am, kiss my ass, but this is who I am.
Well, yeah, and to that point, and I'm not saying this for any reason. I don't have any hidden agendas or trying to manipulate anything, but I haven't made any money on the podcast in 4 years, and mainly because I just came on here to serve, and I pivoted after the murder of George Floyd to be a better ally. And the guests that we've had here, the conversations like this one have been incredible. But I donated all my clothes to the homeless. I said I don't need this stuff, so I donated $10,000 to $20,000. Literally, I had piles and piles of stuff, like 500 to 1,000 articles of clothing. To your point, you're wearing that hat, but so I basically started over with my wardrobe, and I wear nothing except anything that amplifies marginalized communities in any way, shape, or form. Anti-bullying, equality. For those of you that are listening and not watching, I have a Black Lives Matter hat on today, along with a shirt that's no longer available that has a lot of the people that have been murdered as a result of the color of their skin that says Black Lives Matter across of it. And so that was what you said, something spoke to you about your logo. That's what spoke to me. And I was like, I can't be a 54-year-old white Jewish guy who understands the Holocaust and what my family went through and not be a better ally, because we're the problem. The white people in our 50s, 60s, and 70s are the issue still today. So sort of a sidebar to that, but you mentioned, and I remember Lance Armstrong, and I just talked about this on my live on TikTok the other day. You mentioned social media, and we could talk a whole show about social media, the impact of that, as long as you're not getting doxxed. And somebody put in one of my comments, $18 for a piece of material. I didn't even comment. I just deleted it because I didn't want to put my energy towards it. But Lance Armstrong started a movement before he was caught with a $1 wristband. And it started a movement that raised hundreds of millions of dollars for cancer research. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people stop me. I was at Starbucks the other way, and I had the shirt that said, "You are enough." And on the back, it says, "The world is a better place with you in it." Excuse me. And I've read the quote 100 times. And she gave me a hug. She was having a hard day. She saw the shirt on the back. And she gave me a hug, stranger. So, to part of your point, there's, something really powerful about a hat. It's not just a hat. It's not just a piece of clothing. It shows that you're an ally. It shows that you're trying to understand what somebody else has been through and be a better version of yourself. Okay. Favorite Clubhouse personality. You like that transition? That was a horrible transition
That's all right.
for us podcasters.
Oh man, you're gonna get me in trouble here.
Top
you
two.
know, listen, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect, but this guy Ish has been one of my favorites to listen to. And I don't always agree with what he's saying, but to me, it's just one of my favorite characters, so to speak, on Clubhouse. And I don't know who he is really. I was joking with people the other day saying, "Now, if you guys only knew who he was," but I really don't know who he is. But as far as real people, and I know who they are, I don't want to say because I have so many friends, and it's just not right to pick a favorite.
I get it. Yeah, it's funny. This guy came into the chat, and I was wearing this hat during my TikTok live, and he said, "I'm not buying a fan from somebody wearing a Black Lives Matter hat." So my moderators wanted to throw him out. I said, "Do not throw him out. Don't do it. He hasn't crossed the line. He has a false narrative understanding of what Black Lives Matter is and even the organization. 2 hours later, he's still there supporting the room because I educated him and told him what influencers to go check out on TikTok. J. William J, Tizzy, Mr. Krim, Levert the Baseman. And so I gave him some tools to go be a better version of himself. He could choose to not do it or continue to talk shit about my hat. So to your point, if we're not going to listen to people on the complete opposite side of the spectrum respectfully, then how in God's name can we be a better version of ourselves? And can we learn and not have the blind spots that I talked about earlier? Okay, Clip Clap, Million Marathon, or Ion?
Well, I don't know much about Clip Clap except I think I just learned about it this week. I think the C-Roc experience.
There we go. That was the fourth choice. Okay, so I know you love both these guys. Larry King or Howard Stern?
Man, it depends on the mood, bro.
I know.
Gosh.
Well, Howard Stern reinvented after he went to therapy.
I think I like the old Howard Stern better. I like old school Howard Stern. That's what I'll go with.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Favorite word or phrase? Mid.
By the way, I know this is rapid fire, but I got to tell you something. It's because Howard was that one. He leaned into who he was. He didn't care what people thought. The executives at NBC. He stuck to being him. Now, my wife can't stand him. He thinks he's disgusting and everything else. But look, I look past that part. I'm talking about the authenticity.
Absolutely. And to his credit, he reinvented himself and he has been transparent about some of his mistakes. And love him or hate him, you can't argue with that part of it. Favorite, my daughter's 12, going on 30. Favorite word or phrase? Mid, simp, bruh, or no cap?
Bruh.
Favorite app on your phone?
It's got to be Instagram or Clubhouse.
Right.
Because I mean, I build relationships so much with those, and relationships is what matters to me. So tie between them two.
Do you have a favorite tip for Instagram? Because people will complain about apps for not having certain things versus the other app. But what is it about Instagram that you love so much?
The interface is great, but I love the DMs, and I made so many relationships and made so much money and helped so many people through DMing people. And I have software that we use that helps me get 30 to 40 calls a week set up with. They're cold at first through cold outreach, but by the time they get to me on a 15-minute call, they're warm. And if anybody's interested in that, hit me up. It's called That One Chat.
Absolutely. But they are changing the chat features now. So just keep that in mind, guys. Unless they respond first, you're not going to be able to send multiple messages. Tony Robbins or someone else? Like motivational speaking or, life coaching. Or is that not something that resonates?
I like Tony. I like Tony, but I think someone else.
Grant?
I like Grant too, better than Tony, but someone else.
Gotcha. I'll leave it at that. Louis Vuitton or Nike?
Gotta be Nike. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Beer, wine, or the hard stuff?
Depends on the mood, man. I drink it all. I don't drink a lot of it, but it depends on the mood. So if I'm at a steakhouse, red wine, come on. If I'm out with the fellas,
What about that one vodka?
Man. Well, I had a lot of ideas with this, but there's a guy I know that was in the industry, and he's like, dude, you got to be prepared to lose a lot of money for a while. And, that one tequila, that one,
Yeah.
So I'm not there ready to lose a lot of money yet.
Couple more. Who's a bigger gangster, Biden or Trump?
Definitely. Ooh, man, I was going to say Trump right away, but then Biden's get away. He's more like Dapper Don John Gotti. You know what I mean? Like he gets away with it more. Oh shit. I don't know. That's a good question, man. I never thought about that. Let's just go with Biden just because nobody's messing with him and he's getting away with it.
Oh man. You have a favorite athlete of all time?
Lenny Dykstra used to be my favorite. He's not like the greatest guy now, but
wow.
When he was a player for the Mets and Phillies, like I absolutely loved him, and I was an outfielder, and I just loved the hustle so for him, baseball for him, I mean I like a lot of, but that's what came to my mind first.
You think Trump's gonna win?
I thought he would blow Biden out of the water last time because I just can't. I'm from the Eastern Shore here. I mean, I'm familiar with Biden, and but I didn't realize how much power the media has, how much power the forces to be have. I didn't realize that was going to happen like that. If I was a betting man, I would say, yeah.
Wow. So we're not talking about the nomination.
If they don't cheat, he would.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. And the thing is that I think, you know what bothers me the most is there's somebody better than Biden for the Democratic Party out there.
Right.
And it just blows me away. And that just proves, by the way, that somebody else is in power and they just want somebody as a figurehead. And, you know, I'm a guy that, look, I just want all people to have the opportunity to win and be unstoppable, to live in a life of their dreams. I don't give a shit if it's Republican, Democrat, left, right. I don't care. I want people to have that. And, you know, we're in a situation now where people are controlled and they're encouraged to argue and pick a side and be divided, versus what I do, Mike, is I take this whole thing as a game and I'm like, okay, I can't change some of the rules of the game. I don't control the game that's put in front of me necessarily, but I'm going to win at the game and do it that way. And people don't see it that way. And they're just programmed to be swayed. And I'm very, very self-determined and hyper intentional. And I want everybody more to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 more questions. And you played football. And the problem that I have with everything is that the goalposts are moving. I don't like goalposts moving. I don't mind differing strong opinions and you voting on one specific issue, but don't move the goalposts, man. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
What's your love language?
Man, you know, I like hugging people when I see them. and I like that. And, you know, my wife the other day, like I was doing my taxes for 2022. I always have to wait because I'm waiting for K1s and everything for these businesses that I have. And I was doing taxes and I'm just like looking at my money and looking at the money that was spent and looking at the money came in. And I'm like, man, you know, just going through this up and down thing. And my wife came over and sat down next to me and started rubbing my shoulders. That like made everything all right.
Let that breathe for a second. So we just made up a new love language, ladies and gentlemen, rubbing one's partner's shoulders. Okay, last question. So if you could have 5 people, and I'm going to allow Clubhouse people to be a part of this question. I normally don't. But if you could have 5 people at your dinner table, past or present, dead or alive, that you've either met only on Clubhouse, not like family members. I'm only going to allow anybody from Clubhouse that you'd want at your dinner table. So usually it's dead or alive, past or present, that you've never met before. But I'm going to allow anybody from Clubhouse that you have met, but nobody else that you've met. What 5 people would be at your dinner table?
Oh, like I can't say Tiger Woods because I've met him before.
Oh, you met him
before? Yeah, so I can't.
Okay.
Well,
I
so
think
people that I haven't met before.
Tiger's okay.
People that I haven't met before.
Wait, where'd you meet Tiger?
On the golf course.
Event? Oh, nice.
On the golf course, yeah, a couple times, yeah.
So I got a true story about Tiger Woods while you're thinking about it real quick, because I know you got to go. So I knew where Tiger was going to miss on the first hole at Torrey Pines, because that was my home course, and I thought about being a pro golfer. So I knew on the first tee at the 2008 U.S. Open that if he was going to miss, he was going to snap hook at 280. And I went and stood right there, and he snap hooked it 280, and he was like this far away from me. But the hush they came across when he entered that space, it was like a spiritual moment.
It was definitely
fucking wild, bro.
There's definitely an aura around him. First time I saw him before,
holy shit,
it looked like a cartoon character. It just didn't seem real. But I was on a tee box in I think we were in Liberty National, and I told my daughter, sit right here on this tee box because I know they're walking up towards this way from the left side of the tee box, and it's a good spot to be seen. Right. I'm a guy that likes figuring out how to get seen. Like I know how to get attention.
Yeah.
So I sat her right there under the rope. So I stood behind her. And when he came up, I said, hey, say hi, Mr. Tiger. And she did. And I got it on video the whole time. And she said, hey, Mr. Tiger. And he had a ball in his hand. And he said, hey, kiddo. And he rolled the ball to her. So we got a Tiger Woods Nike ball. And I got it on video. Wow. And so then that's the first time I ever had an interaction with him. And then later my cousin played at the Medalist in Jupiter with him. And they were used to seeing each other all the time. And we were at a pro-am and I was walking down the fairway with him on the other side of the rope, but still talking to him. And I'm like, hey man, Brad said, what's up? And how you doing? This and that. And we just got talking. And, but he's definitely larger than life. And I learned people, Hoot, I know I'm going off track here because I just wrapped five. Like this thing with these people like Tiger, they're bigger than life, right? Trump, bigger than life, right? I learned things from them to the point now where I'm doing some of the stuff that they're doing. And I get that from people now. You're bigger than life, C-Roc. Like you're bigger than life. And I learned it from them, from observing them. So having them at the dinner table, Trump, I would like to have Trump, Obama,
Wow.
Clinton.
Oh,
I don't need Joe there because he'd be worthless right now. So
not
I would like to have
Bush?
those three there.
Not
George
Abraham
Bush,
Lincoln?
George Bush, yeah, would be a good one. Let's just do all these presidents, and then so those four there. And let me think. Let me think about here. And then how about let's get a little bit of George Washington on there too, the first president. Let's just do presidents. Sit there
So
and
who
talk and chat it out.
was, you don't want to get in trouble with your wife. Who would be a first female at your table?
Besides my wife, right, and my
Right,
daughter, and
exactly.
my
That's why.
mom.
There you
Okay,
go.
so outside of family,
We've moved the goalpost, ladies and gentlemen. We've gone from 5 to 10 people at this dinner table. It's
I gotta go. I gotta go either with Kim, my ops manager for that one agency, or probably Charlotte from Clubhouse.
Char. Yeah, man, I heard her this morning. I don't think I had heard her before, but man, she's got some
Yeah,
amazing,
she's the co-host over there with us.
amazing stuff. So you like to get that swole on still, huh?
Yeah, I do. I love lifting. I love, crushing the gym when I go in there, and I just but I do like walking too, man. I like jogging, but I started walking a lot recently, and I've been advised to try to slow down on the heart rate a little bit because it creates stress and cortisol. So I've been like my steps yesterday. I mean, today I'm already at 12,500, but yesterday I did 17,000. The day before I did 20,000 steps. So I'm moving quite a bit.
That's awesome. We got a lot in common. Well, I appreciate the time so much. Look, just so you guys know, I didn't ask C-Roc, and I didn't ask him to tell his real name because I figured he likes to go by C-Roc. But I made a comment. We talked about being authentic in one of the spaces that you were in. It was either your experience or social. I don't remember where it was. And you were like, dude, I'd love to come on your show. So this just sort of happened organically. So I can't thank you enough. I was nervous. I've had a lot of Hall of Fame guests. I've had a lot of amazing guests, and I'm a lot more comfortable than I used to be. But I can't thank you enough because I think you helped me be a better version of myself. I love to listen to what people's experiences have been. I love thoughtful conversations. Anything about the book? Anything else? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I mean, listen, if anybody's interested and excuse me, understands the power of podcasting from based on what I said, go to the number one agency.com and check it out. You can book a free call with us so we can explain to you what we do for our clients. And it's very important to check it out if you're an entrepreneur. You can't get better marketing, and Michael, you should be looking at it too. Like one episode a week, you should be filming 1 to 2 episodes a week on other people's shows. It'll change your life.
Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to C-Roc so much for coming into the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. And man, 5 to 10 years from now, I can't wait to see how you continue to be a better version of yourself. You evolve, continue to build the foundation the right way, authentically and organically. And I look forward to seeing you in the hallways.
Thanks, Hoop. Appreciate you, man.
All right. Much love, brother. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Check them out at thatoneagency.com. If you have any other questions, you know how to reach me. Man, phenomenal stuff. Please like, share, comment, offer any kind of feedback that can help me be a better version of myself. I try and listen thoughtfully and pivot with the questions so it flows well. So shout out to C-Roc and his team, what he's doing, and the legacy that he's creating for not only his own family, but for everyone involved in that one. And check out his book and anything else that you have questions about. You can book a call with him for free for 15 minutes. And until next time, guys, thanks so much for joining me. We hope we added some inspiration, motivation, and or education, and maybe a little bit of comedic relief here in the Sports Deli. All right. Thanks again for joining us. Much love, everybody. Peace. Thanks again for joining us today, everyone. Feel free to send me an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. Also, check out my link tree. It's /Mike Hootner. Also like to thank a few people. 40 Tons brand is a socially conscious cannabis brand, and they're doing amazing things. Check them out. We'd also like to thank Moolah Kicks, the first ever female brand basketball shoe in the history of the world. We'd also like to encourage you, if you're having a hard day and if you're feeling like you just don't want to live anymore, all you have to do is dial 988 from any phone, and there will be someone there 24/7, 365. So don't feel like you have to fight this battle alone. Don't forget to do your self-breast and self-testicular exams every month. It's really important, as early detection is the key. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Reach out to your local and state politicians for any individual or group that you feel are being marginalized. Stop the bullying. Stop the Asian hate. Let's end gun violence with common sense laws. Let's be allies for the LGBTQIA+ community. And I challenge those of you in the white space to be anti-racist, to be bridges and vessels, to help bridge the gaps between Black and white America. And remember, until next time, it takes a village, everyone. Much love. Peace.